everybody. Top of the Saturday morning to you. Welcome to The Sweat. I'm Emerson Lancia, Josh Applebaum, Steve Buchanan with the new haircut.
Looking good, man.
Dude, you look really good. It's going to be tough to focus here the next 2 hours. Julian Edlow.
All right, I'll carry the load as usual.
I want you to know.
Laser focused.
Josh's dad will not be listening to you today because you're wearing a flannel, and he hates when people wear flannels.
First off, is this flannel or plaid?
That's close
plaid.
enough to being a flannel when your dad hates you again.
Yeah, so you won't watch the show today.
No, and it's a shame because we have a boatload coming up. Yeah. We're going to break down all of the divisional round games in the NFL. It's one of the best sports weekends, really, of the year, plus some college basketball, some NBA bets to get to. But yes, despite being neither the biggest slate of playoff games nor the round with a championship here on the line, it's hard not to argue that this weekend is one of the best of the NFL season, one of the best across all sports. First game of the day. First game of the day, boys. There's no quarterback playing this weekend who has more pressure on him, in my opinion, than Lamar Jackson. Welcoming in the Baltimore Ravens are the rookie phenom, CJ Stroud, and the Texans, baby. Let's go. Does anyone have more pressure on him? More than Lamar Jackson, Steve?
I think it's pretty close. I mean, when you think about it too, like going by the public numbers here, like there's been a lot of love for the Green Bay Packers, right? Coming into that game against the 49ers tonight. Obviously, the 49ers basically steamrolled the entire league, and now going up against a Packers team that, at least by the odds makers, they should roll right over. But, you know, Josh, I'm sure we'll talk about this later. There's been a lot of public love for the Packers.
Oh, yeah.
I'll say that there's a quarterback with more pressure on them.
Who?
Josh Allen.
Okay. I was going to say 1 and 2.
If now's not the time you're going to beat the Chiefs, when is what everybody's saying. Sure. You lose in the playoffs to the Chiefs every time. Now you finally get that game at home. What are you going to do with it? I think Josh Allen has the most pressure on him.
All right, so, Josh, like, C.J. Stroud's ascent here as one of the best rookie quarterbacks we've ever seen, would you agree that it's almost making the Ravens a little underrated?
So this game is tough for me for a couple reasons. Steve mentioned it, but right off the bat, the thing that jumped out to me is that 66% of bets are taking the Texans in the points. So as a contrarian bettor, right off the bat, that worries me when it comes to taking the Houston Texans. I think since we're at -9.5 with the Ravens right now, game day movement is so important here. If you see this line go from -9.5 juiced up to 10, that's going to be a great sign that the Ravens are taking in money late. If you look at it the other way and we see it fall down to 9, which it did tip down to 9 at some shops throughout the week, then that's a good sign for the Texans. But Emerson, even though, and it gives me heartburn that the public side here is the Texans, all my system matches are on the Texans. If you look at playoff dogs, they're 60% against the spread since 2017. They're 4-2 ATS to start this postseason. If you missed the playoffs and you're a dog the previous year, 67% ATS since 2017. And then here's the one that I really am backing. If you're going to go and take the points here with the Texans, this is the one you like, Emerson. Fading a divisional round favorite off a bye. The media narrative is that these teams off a bye are rested, ready to go. It's a huge advantage, which it is. They tend to win these games, but all we care about is, will the Texans cover the number? If you fade these divisional round favorites off a bye, they're 41-29 against the spread, 59% over the last 2 decades. Meanwhile, CJ Stroud, 6-2 ATS as a dog. Lamar Jackson, only 1-9 against the spread as a favorite of 7 or more. So I hate that the Texans are a public play, but I'm leaning toward Texans in the points.
I was going to bring that up too. The Baltimore as a touchdown favorite or higher, 1-3 ATS this year, and then you got C.J. Stroud, who's performed really well as a road underdog this season, 4-1 ATS, covering by over 7 points in that scenario here. Like, I think there are a lot of things that point to the Texans in this. What's crazy to me is that, like, the Texans, I think, are a good team, like a good complete team. But when you look at how the line is set, like, you'd think that they're not at all. Like, the Ravens have obviously been amazing defensively. They've been great offensively too, but we just saw that last week too, how good Houston can be defensively as well. And if Baltimore isn't able to run the ball, which is a big thing in this game, Houston's been excellent against the run. If they're not running the ball, that means a lot more throwing. Without Mark Andrews in this game, like, I think there is some concern there for him.
Jules, we're talking about C.J. Stroud and Lamar Jackson, who have the same amount of playoff wins in their career. This also reminds me a lot of 2019. The Ravens went the Ravens went 14-2. They had the first round bye. They come into the divisional round and they get smoked by an AFC South team, the Titans.
I think the Ravens are going to be ready for this one. I think they're going to be prepared. The number is large. They've had a couple weeks to prepare, obviously, too, with the last week of the regular season, essentially one that they could take off. So I do think they're going to be prepared. If you made me lay it with a favorite today, and these two games, by the way, very similar. Not just the spread, but the spot, the storylines with these young quarterbacks and Stroud and Love getting big playoff wins as underdogs. Like that, there's a lot of similarities in these games. If I had to lay it with one, I would be laying it with the Niners, and we'll obviously touch on that game plenty. So I think Houston has a better chance than Green Bay to cover as the big road dog here. Put it that way. But I would lean Ravens in the game. I think that they should be able to dominate, specifically early. I would look at Baltimore. I know it's a 6.5, very inflated first half number. Ravens are 14-3 against the spread, first half spread this season. They've been a great team out of the gates, and I would trust them to run away with the win. But obviously, with over a possession on the spread here, Houston can be down 14 in the fourth quarter here and come down and cover. If I'm laying it, I would lay it Baltimore first half. I do think they'll be able to run the ball, and I think that Lamar Jackson will be able to make the plays that he needs to here.
Key injury on the Ravens that does have me concerned. No Marlon Humphrey in this game. Obviously, will have been one of their best corners. That's going to open up a lot for Nico Collins. And if you look at the connection that Collins and Stroud have had specifically, without Tank Dell, the numbers are absolutely absurd. I'll quickly run down here. There's been 6 games where this scenario has happened. Collins has caught 6 for 96, 9 for 195, 7 for 80, 9 for 191, 7 for 104, and 4 for 80. That is Nico Collins' number without Tank Dell and with C.J. Stroud. So that obviously would have me on Collins going over 77.5 receiving yards for a prop here. But that is a key matchup that the Ravens really need to focus on, because after that it's Mechie, Xavier Hutchinson, Robert Woods, who has a tough matchup against Kyle Hamilton. But that matchup specifically, if they don't stop Nico Collins, there's a legit chance that the Houston can drive down the field in this scenario.
Josh, we have Lamar Jackson, first-team All-Pro quarterbacks. Ravens, 14th since 1970, with a first-team All-Pro quarterback and the number 1 scoring defense here. The other 3 teams all won Super Bowls. 72 Dolphins, 78 Steelers, the 96 Packers here. Just saying, second best odds right now on DK Sportsbook, too, if you want to look ahead a little deeper down the road to win the Super Bowl.
I mean, at least I look at stats that I'm alive for when they happen.
All I'm saying is that these numbers do not lie. Last 3 teams in this position have won the Super Bowl.
So that's a great point, obviously, with kind of the history there.
It's a fantastic point.
Okay.
I want to get your guys' take on the total, though, because, Steve, we do have a windy under in this spot. It's not crazy windy.
Here we go. Now we're
we got to start the show. It only took, 7 minutes to get the windy unders, but we have seen this total fall. It was as high as 47. It's down to 43.5. 80% of bets are going over, yet this total has fallen. It's going to be cold. 10 to 15 mile per hour winds. Got a system here, playoff totals. When you see a playoff total fall at least a half point, the under is 2-1 so far this season. It's 59% since 2017. John Hussey is one of the best under refs historically, 56%. So what do you guys think? Are you looking toward a lower scoring game? And I think also if you look at correlative betting, comparing the size of the spread toward the total is falling, and yet we're still getting a big dog with points. That tells me that if points are at a premium, that value of getting the 9.5, or even if you can get a 10, could be a good sign here if it's a lower scoring game to cover the 9.5. Steve, you going windy under today? What do you think?
I mean, I was more interested in the under earlier in the week. This, I think, has fallen so much now that I have to think that I have to consider the over in this one too. But like I mentioned, Houston has been so good against the run. So if they are negating the Ravens' run game in this one, does that mean Lamar Jackson's passing more so we can see more of a faster paced game? I think that's kind of what I've been looking at here. Because if you look at the Browns, what the Browns did or didn't do on the ground against Houston last week, 17 carries for 43 yards and 1 touchdown. So that's an average of 2.5 yards per carry last week against the Houston Texans. So I think we're just going to see a lot of passing in this one. At its current number, what's it, 43.5? I would be leaning the over in this one here. But if you got that good number earlier in the week, we're sitting at 45, 46. I think you're in a good spot for the under, but it's gotten so low now that I would be on the over at this point at 43.5.
And Jules, there was chatter this past week when the Ravens activated Mark Andrews there to return to practice. I believe he was close to a full participant most of the week, but he will not play today against the Texans.
Yeah, and I think that they're pretty well covered at that position. Likely stepped in and been pretty good, and Andrews is obviously in position to come back later in a playoff run, assuming that the Ravens can win this game as sizable home favorites. So I think that's somewhat expected, but good for them that they can have him back, ease him in, at their own pace. In terms of the total in this game, Andrews in or out doesn't do much for me, but I would still lean under in this game. I think that Houston's in line for a pretty big drop-off scoring-wise, and Baltimore probably is going to be stubborn and still attempt to do what they do and run the ball against a really good Houston run defense and just kind of see what the results are there. So this could be kind of an early game plan, which, again, I'm looking at Ravens first half. Maybe you want to look at a first half under and say that these teams stick to that, and then, I don't know, if Baltimore goes up a couple scores, does the game open up? Potentially. But I would say this is the game that I have the least feel for on the weekend, the Baltimore-Houston game.
And it's also, I think, important to point out that Stroud has performed much worse in his 5 outdoor games this season, where he threw just 3 touchdowns in 5 games, and his quarterback rating was 85.1.
So you're worried about that if you're Stroud, but I'm going to go over on his passing yards, Emerson. It's over 234.5. It's juiced up minus 130. He had 274. Obviously, I was in a dome against the Browns, but he's gone over in 7 of his last 9. Week 1, his first start in the NFL, he had 242 against the Ravens.
All right, gentlemen. Well done. We got some college hoops to tackle here. A new top dog reigns supreme. Plus, we're horns down, baby. We're back after a quick break. All right, the NFL's divisional round, it takes center stage this weekend. That doesn't mean we're going to ignore the great college basketball betting value we have on this weekend slate. And you two are great at doing this. By the way, earlier this week, reigning national champion UConn jumping 3 spots to become the 4th team to earn the #1 spot this season. You could check out the top 10 teams on your screen when they are in action, most of them today, minus Memphis, which is tomorrow at Tulane. Let's start in Austin, though, here, guys. Things aren't going great for Rodney Terry and the Texas Longhorns at the moment. Look no further than the horns down fiasco that followed a home loss to America's team, UCF, on Wednesday. Now they welcome in one of the Big 12's best in Baylor, Jules. So which side you on here?
Well, the market screams Texas, so I'm going to let Josh start.
Ooh. Is that right? Ooh, I like this. Spicy. Go ahead.
Where's Matthew McConaughey? All right. We're going to hook 'em. We're going Texas, baby.
Sexy.
Love this spot toward Texas. This game opened around a pick 'em. Texas has now been steamed up to -3, so good movement in their favor. But what I like most about Texas is the fact that the public is all over Baylor. Baylor's getting upwards of 65, almost 70% of the bets, yet the line's going to Texas. So why is this line going to the Longhorns if the public is just hammering Baylor in this spot? Well, it has a lot to do with the record and obviously the ranking here. Baylor is ranked, and if you look at Texas, they're unranked. So why is Texas, who's unranked, and they've actually lost 3 of their last 4, why did this game open at around a pick'em? Why did it move toward Texas if the public's on Baylor and Baylor is quote-unquote the better team? Anytime you see this, regardless of the sport in college, whether it's college basketball, college football, this is my favorite system. Unranked home favorite versus a ranked opponent. We had a bunch of winners with this system last week. Texas A&M against Kentucky came through. You had some winners during the week with LSU, Kansas State, Cincinnati, New Mexico. So this is an auto bet for me. Anytime you see the public on that ranked team, yet the line is going to the unranked team, that's an unranked team play every time. Texas 9-2 at home, and that unranked home favorite versus ranked opponent, it is now 11-5 straight up this year, 69%, and it's 65% since 2017. So I'm going to go money line here, hook 'em, -165.
I mean, Bears haven't been the same team offensively. Went on the road too, Jules.
Yeah, I think Josh and I are going to agree a lot after this game, but every week I give you one where I say that the market is wrong and think that I'm smarter than the market. Last week I was wrong about Kentucky and Texas A&M, but the week before it worked.
Admit that.
Hey, we're going to bounce back here.
Okay.
Baylor +3 in this game. Yes, Baylor is the better team, but that's not necessarily why I'm betting them here. Baylor's in as much of a gotta-have-it spot as Texas is, and they've matched up very well with Texas over the years. They're 7-1 in their last 8 games against Texas. They're 7-2 against the spread in their last 9 trips to Austin. In-state spot, they know it very well. I'm not too afraid of the atmosphere here. And Texas might be one of those teams, we're going to keep betting on a bounce back from this team. They might be one of these teams that doesn't have it. I'm not a big fan of the coaching in Rodney Terry. I'm not a big fan of the whining with the horns down.
Dude, how
sure, they're going to be.
is that?
It's very soft, and I get it. That leads to a bounce back spot. Why wasn't UCF a bounce back spot coming off a loss to West Virginia as a 6-point favorite?
Amen, brother.
I just don't see it with Texas this year. They could get it together at some point in time. They certainly have the talent, but coaching advantage to Baylor, talent advantage to Baylor, and Baylor's coming off the overtime loss to Kansas State in a spot that they gave up a late 4-point play, easily could have won that game. I trust Baylor more to bounce back in this spot.
And now you got Marquette, too, as we go to the Big East, chasing down UConn, doing its best to chase down UConn. But the rest of the Golden Eagles schedule is really no cakewalk here. In case in point, a visit to Madison Square Garden today, battle St. John's. Rick Pitino and his program off to a strong start here, Josh. Angling for a ticket here to March's big dance. So what you like here?
I like the Johnnies. I think Julian may be with me on this one with the Johnny boys, right?
Love
Love St. John's in this one, so I'm glad we're on the same side. What I love about this one is just a contrarian reverse line move. What that is, it means it's when you have heavy betting on one side, but the line goes the other way. So, for example, Marquette, same sort of thing. These rankings have so much influence on the public. If you're a high-ranked team or a ranked team versus an unranked team, automatically that's all the public needs to know is take that better team, the ranking, for a reason, basically. However, even though Marquette's ranked and St. John's isn't, 70% of bets are going Marquette, but the line's going to St. John's. St. John's opened at some shops even like a +1 dog, pick 'em, -1. Now they're up to -1.5. This line is moving towards St. John's, even though they're the unpopular bet. There would be that same system match, that unranked home fav ranked opponent, which would be the one we just talked about on Texas. But also in particular, St. John's buying low. I know I always screw up my Joes and Johns off 2 straight losses. And then here's what I'm going to put some stock into, guys. Marquette they're ranked, good team, but they're only 1-3 on the road versus the Johnny Boys, 7-1 at home. So I like this angle here. Dog to fave, pick 'em to fave, super contrarian reverse line move. Give me the St. John's Red Storm on the money line.
Okay, so why are you guys on the same page here?
Yeah, Marquette.
I'm uncomfortable.
Marquette road struggles. They have, lost at Wisconsin as a favorite. Got smoked by 15, favored at Providence. Seton Hall, lost at Seton Hall as a 5-point favorite. They lost at home to Butler as a double-digit favorite. They were able to bounce back at home against Villanova, but now another tough road game in the Big East. Game's going to be at MSG, and you're playing a St. John's team that is in need of a bounce back. They lost by 1 as a 6-point dog at Creighton, and then they lost in a pick'em type of game to Seton Hall on the road. Rick Pitino, last minute, wasn't able to coach in that game, maybe threw them off a little bit. So you're coming back home after 2 tough road losses. I trust them to hang here. They went to UConn as 11-point dogs, hung in there, had a chance to win, lost by 4. They've been tested in the Big East, and I think that they've played up to standards. So they have a win over Villanova by double digits as a road dog. I think at home here against a Marquette team that's really struggling on the road, in need of a bounce back off those 2 losses, very good spot for St. John's.
All right, let's get back to the Big 12. Top 25 matchup, Iowa State, TCU facing off here. So the Cyclones have played as a moneyline underdog, I think around plus 146 or longer in only 2 games this season, which they won both. Jules.
Yeah, I played the Cyclones at home against Houston, handed them their first loss of the season, but things are very different once you go on the road. So you got TCU, who I think is one of those teams, I talk about those teams on this segment that I think maybe you can go against the market on. I almost took TCU on the road the other day. Thankfully, I didn't. They did lose to Cincy by 4 as 3.5-point dogs, but they really hung in that game in overtime. Now they're coming home off a tough loss, playing an Iowa State team that just lost on the road to BYU. That was another game that I went against them. I'll go against Iowa State again on the road here. I think their scoring is going to give them big struggles on the road, whereas TCU's a really talented team at home in a bounce-back spot.
All right, Josh, you guys on the same page once again?
We are. This is our second one that we're in agreements with. So let's go Horned Frogs. TCU, love this spot toward TCU. Julian gave you a great breakdown, but I'll look at it from the data perspective. I mean, this game opened TCU as a very short 2 or 2.5-point home favorite. TCU is now up to 3.5 or even 4. So pretty clear one-sided movement in favor of TCU. Also, if you look at the percentages, I don't love the fact that TCU is getting 81% of bets. Again, I don't like being on that public side, but they're getting 94% of money. So at least you're kind of on the sharp side, even though you're in a public spot. But this is my second favorite system. When it comes to college basketball, 1, it's that unranked home favors ranked opponent. 2, it's when 2 ranked teams play each other, take the home favorite. That system is 15-2 straight up, 88% this year. It's 81% straight up since 2022. Julian mentioned home road, but if you look at TCU, 9-0 at home. Iowa State just 1-2 on the road. I lean a lot on these home teams. If you look at the records of most teams in college basketball, Julian, home versus road, most of them are winning at home, losing on the road. So that's something that is very real, even though it's like an obvious thing. The data backs it up. So it's a little pricey, but I am going to go money line here. I got TCU at minus 180.
Jules, I know you got to play here for a key ACC battle between 2 teams in the middle of the conference standing. So we're talking Miami making the trip north here to face Syracuse.
Yeah, we can just use exactly what Josh just said and apply it to this game. Syracuse is 8-0 at home. Miami coming all the way up to Cuse to play this game. They're 1-2 on the road this season. I think an overrated team. This is what tells me what I need to know about Miami is that they lost at home to Louisville, and Louisville is about as bad as it gets right now. They have that type of floor. Coming off that Final Four team last year, they lost a lot of talent. They brought some of it back, but the it factor with this Hurricane squad, not there for me. So going up to a tough place to play in the Dome against a Syracuse team that's been very good at home, I'm betting Syracuse in this game. I was surprised this was like a pick'em type of price.
I mean, Josh, we got BYU's first season as we go back to the Big 12 here, their first season in the Big 12, but they've performed rather admirably thus far and going to look to keep the momentum rolling here in Lubbock against Texas Tech.
I think they have a tough spot here. I'm going to go Texas Tech, Emerson. I like this spot toward Texas Tech. This game opened Texas Tech getting a point and a half, a point. I mean, this was a short favorite here on BYU, yet we've seen this dog to fave line move. No matter the sport, you open as a dog, you flip to a favorite. I love following that sharp movement. Tells me a lot of money came in to flip that number. And if you look at the money line percentages here, I look toward money spread most of the time, 99% of the time on a spread sport like NBA, college basketball, football. But when it's around a pick'em, look at the money line percentages, because a lot of bettors like to go money line just to protect themselves if it's a short win. Money line percentages look really good for Texas Tech. They're only getting 65% bets, 98% of the money, Emerson. So a lot of big money on Texas Tech. This would be that same system match, 2 ranked teams take home favorite. Give me Texas Tech. Let's go Red Raiders.
All right, gentlemen, we got to take a break. Ross Tucker standing by. Before he makes the trek down to Baltimore to call today's game against the Texans, he's going to join us. We'll break down the divisional round next. right, everybody, back here on The Sweat, where we are joined now by broadcaster, podcaster, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker in the house, at least virtually. Good morning, Ross. How are you?
I am fantastic, Emerson. This is one of my favorite weekends of the year, if not my favorite weekend of the year. Every year, divisional weekend, and it's especially good for me because I'll just be driving down to Baltimore later today to call the Texans and the Ravens. You know, people don't realize this. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, Emerson. But as a broadcaster, you get paid per game, right? So just driving down to Baltimore and then driving back right after the game, way better than flying out to San Francisco yesterday, taking the red eye back. So winning. I'm winning. I don't even remember what that's from anymore. Charlie Sheen?
Yeah, Charlie Sheen. Yeah, where he went way off the deep end and did a ridiculous amount of drugs. But anywho, speaking of winning, your Eagles did not do that. So I do want to start in your home state. What's the Eagles' biggest problem, and how do they fix it here, Ross?
Well, so to me, it's coaching and it's the confidence or lack thereof in the coaching. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, they were 10-1. I really feel like for a good year and a half, they were the best team in professional football. I thought they were the best team last year. They were not able to get it done 38-35 against the Chiefs. They lost that game. Obviously, the Hurts fumble return touchdown being significant, but I thought they were the better team even in that game. And then 10-1 this year, and they beat, I believe in a row. You can check on this, but it was like the Dolphins, Cowboys, Chiefs, Bills. I mean, they were beating a bunch of good teams. They were playing well.
A lot of those, Ross, were
came in, smashed them, and it all went downhill from there.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of those, though, kind of fool's gold in a way, because I think many of those games were only one-score games, too, and you're barely squeaking by. So does the trio of Hurts, Sirianni, and Johnson, are they going to be able to continue to work together?
Well, Hurts is going to be there. We know that because of his contract. Johnson and Sirianni, I think, are very much up for debate right now. You know, to my knowledge, I don't even know if and when Sirianni and Lurie are going to meet. Jeffrey Lurie being the owner of the Eagles, and pretty clearly, based on all the reports out there, you know, Nick Sirianni is going to have to present to Jeffrey Lurie a plan that identifies what the problem was and how he's going to fix it. My guess is that probably entails at least one new coordinator and maybe two. I don't know that just a new defensive coordinator is going to be enough. I think Sirianni's plan probably will have to include a new offensive coordinator as well.
Staying in the NFC least, Cowboys sticking with Mike McCarthy, good or a bad move here by Jerry Jones?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I think it's a very different situation than the Eagles, to be honest with you. I mean, you know, that was just a one-game situation. That happens. I mean, we've seen a lot of times over the years where there's stunning, surprising one-game performances in the playoffs. I mean, listen, I'm driving down to Baltimore. Last time I drove down to Baltimore for a playoff game, Emerson, was 2019. The Ravens were the number one seed, 14-2. Lamar Jackson, unanimous MVP. They got throttled by the Titans at home in the divisional round. And nobody's going to fire John Harbaugh after that. So I'm okay with Mike McCarthy staying, and I'll give you a big reason why. The offense was excellent.
Yeah.
And that's really what McCarthy's in charge of. Dan Quinn's more or less the head coach of the defense, but McCarthy got Dak Prescott, second team All-Pro. He'll be top 5 in the MVP voting. I wouldn't mess with that if I'm the Cowboys. Now, we'll see whether or not Dan Quinn gets a head coaching job elsewhere. It was a really, really bad day. It was a shockingly bad game for the boys. But I think if you ever in pro football make a decision based on one game, you're missing the point. I mean, they have a much bigger sample size than that. Dan Quinn had been playing a lot of man coverage, single high safety. He switched to zone, and the Cowboys looked confused, and the Packers tore him up.
How do you like Belichick's fit with Atlanta? A lot of signs pointing that's the direction that the Falcons will go in.
Certainly seems like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that he's had or having a second interview, whatever, that the Falcons have been reported to want to go big name hunting, which I think is interesting. And I think there's a lot there to like for Belichick. I think the roster is structured in a way that he would probably enjoy. You know, the expectations are not sky high. You have a winning record. You make the playoffs. They're probably happy, but they're not that far off. They really, to me, whether it's Arthur Smith or Belichick, just needed a top 20 quarterback, just a top 20 guy. But they got to figure out what the path is for that, right? Who is the top 20 guy for the Atlanta Falcons at quarterback next year? Is it Justin Fields? Is it Kirk Cousins? I mean, I don't know who the name is, but they need to have a path to get a viable quarterback, because that's also a very winnable division for Belichick to come in, win the division, get closer to breaking the record, all those things.
All right, let's get to this game you're about to head down to and call today with the Ravens hosting the Texans. You already mentioned 2019. Everyone knows it's been a narrative all week long. Lamar Jackson 1-3 in his playoff career. How do the Ravens avoid another postseason letdown today?
Well, three things jump out to me, right? Number one, I think they need to get off to a fast start. And I say that because we know the Lamar Jackson playoff narrative. We know the Ravens playoff narrative, right? You don't want to let the Texans get the jump on you, because then anxiety everywhere in the building, on the sideline. It's not good. That's number one, fast start. The other two are pretty obvious, I think. Usually when you're a heavy favorite, I would say, don't turn the football over, protect the ball. The Ravens have the best turnover ratio in the NFL, but that, remember, is a reactive statistic, not a predictive statistic. That's a great stat, but they could be -4 today, right? Like, we don't know that. So that's a big thing. The other thing is, don't let them beat you deep. Marlon Humphrey is out for the Ravens, their best cover corner. CJ Stroud has been dynamic, throwing the ball deep. Absolutely cannot let the Texans get the deep ones today against you if you're the Ravens. Force them to drive the length of the field.
All right, Jordan Love and the Packers burning anyone and everyone who bet against them last week. What do you expect from Green Bay against San Francisco?
Yeah, terrible, by the way. Thank you very much, Packers. I did have the Cowboys as a teaser leg. The other two hit in Houston and Tampa Bay, but the Cowboys couldn't even cover -1.5. Yeah. They instead got annihilated. I'd be up a bunch of units on the Even Money podcast. Instead, I'm not. So they should have fired. Go back to the Mike McCarthy. No, I'm just kidding. As for Jordan Love, look, it's very similar, I would say, to the Texans-Ravens. Eerily similar, right? Number 1 seed, coming off a bye, playing at home, the best team against a young upstart squad that has a terrific, and I mean terrific, young quarterback in Jordan Love and what he's been able to do. So I really believe that if you are going to bet in this game, I think Jordan Love gives you a chance, Emerson, to get the backdoor cover late. But I think the Niners are going to score a lot of points. I don't think the Packers defense is very good, even though they played a little bit better the last couple of weeks. And I think that they will have a better plan in place in San Francisco defensively than the Cowboys did.
All right, what are the chances the Bucs offense can have the same success as they did against Philly, but this time on the road in Detroit? You got to proceed with caution here, because Tampa Bay, the best ATS road team in the NFL this season, 8-1.
Wow, I didn't know that, Emerson.
Yeah.
Finally providing some value for the show.
Let's go,
That's
baby.
incredible.
My job here is done.
That was amazing. Probably would have been good for me to know that before I picked the Lions. At any rate, I was on the sideline Sunday night for their game against the Rams. That place was electric. That place was incredible. And I think the Bucs are going in a hornet's nest here. Short week. I know they played pretty well against the Eagles. The Eagles are one of the worst teams in the NFL right now. Eagles are in absolute disarray. That's not the same with the Lions. And I will say this, though. The Lions' weakness clearly is the cornerback position. So the Bucs having those receivers, Godwin and Evans, that does give them a chance to attack those guys and have a pretty good opportunity to potentially make some big plays. I do think there's a bunch of points. I took the over in this game on the critically acclaimed Even Money betting podcast, over 48.5. I think it's like 31-23 Lions.
Okay. All right. Quickly here. We got a minute to go in this block. Mahomes, Allen, feel like it's the new Brady, Manning. Who comes out on top in this latest chapter in their rivalry?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
This is a good one. This is a tough one. I think I'm going to take the Chiefs. And I'll tell you why. This is the best defense that Andy Reid has ever had. Spagnuolo has been fantastic. This is the biggest health disparity between two teams in the divisional round, according to SixScore.com, Sports Injury Central. The Bills are beat up, and they're beat up on defense at the wrong time. A lot of pressure on them not to lose in the divisional round again, not to lose to the Chiefs in the playoffs again. Give me the Chiefs in a close one. You can look at the money line, 20-17, 23-20, something like that.
All right, Ross Tucker, we love you, man. We got to talk some hoops coming up next. We're going to update everyone on the status of Joel Embiid and why betting him to repeat as MVP may not be such a great idea. Wrapping up our first hour of the sweat here on The Sweat, and we're
Very smooth.
We're wrapping up our basketball discussion as well. We've got some more college hoops to get after, but first let's start in the NBA. Let's pour one out for your Celtics here, Julian. First loss at home.
One hurt the old bankroll.
Dude, what happened last night against Denver? First loss of the season?
Violently puking all over themselves at the end of each half. Here's a Celtics stat. The Celtics scored, not bitter or anything.
Okay.
The Celtics scored 58 points in the first 20 minutes and 30 seconds of that game, and 42 points in the remaining 27-30. They did not go over their first half team total of 61.5 after scoring 58, after having 58 with 3.5 minutes left.
All right, I regret asking you about
Anyway,
that. Let's build that bankroll back up. Eamon, can we get back over to the games today? So this is the first chunk of today's slate around the NBA. Josh, what is on your card from these 4 games here we see on the screen?
Yeah, I'll start with the first one, Emerson. 3 o'clock sweat here. You can get it in before the first NFL playoff game. But Bucks at Pistons. This one jumped out to me, not in terms of the spread, but in terms of the total. The spread, Bucks are a huge favorite. They're minus 13. They're up to minus 13.5 at some shops. But I'm looking toward the total here, and I'm looking toward a very high-scoring game. This total opened at 241. When we were getting ready to do the show, it was at, I want to say, 242.5. Now it's up to 244. So on the one hand, I love the fact that it keeps getting steamed up. On the other hand, you're not getting the best of the number here at this point. But I'm going to still lean here to the over. You have a really good bet split. The tickets are right down the middle, 50-50. Public, sees 2 high-scoring teams. Bad defensive team here with the Bucks, yet they're worried because the total is so high. But 94% of the money is going toward the over. So that tells me we got a lot of sharp action to the over. Both these teams are 25-16 to the over. That's the second best, tied for the second best in the NBA. They're both top 5 in terms of pace. Bucks are number 1 offensive efficiency. Pistons are almost dead last defensive efficiency. So I'm still going to go over here. I got 242.5 before the show started. Again, it's up to 244 now, but at least it's a good sign that this over continues to get hammered. I expect a high-scoring game between the Bucks and the Pistons.
Jules, what bet do you like here among these 4 games?
Yeah, take me to the grossest game of the day, a nice Spurs-Wizards game.
We're talking worst team in the West, second worst team in the East.
Yeah, I'm surprised they're that high, actually. But when the Pistons are playing, I guess somebody, you can't be the worst team in the East. Wembanyama sat last night, played today, so naturally you're going to look at the Spurs. No, give me the gross Washington Wizards here. Wembanyama in is great, and maybe against a defense like the Wizards, I may want to look at some of his overs. And the reason that I like the Wizards and maybe want to look at some of Wembanyama's overs is that this team played last night. There's always rest potential with the other guys that did play, tired legs for the guys that do play both of the games. So I think Washington at home here against a Spurs team that's been dreadful on the road, dreadful all the time, really. Gives you a couple betting angles here. So I haven't played anything officially yet, but this will be either Washington for me, Wembanyama props if we see enough guys rest, or both.
I'm with Julian in this one, Emerson. I like this gross play toward the Wizards. One, system play in terms of fading teams on the second leg of a back-to-back. Yes, when Wembanyama didn't play last night, he's going to play today, so he'll be fresh. But the rest of his team is going to be tired in this spot, having played yesterday. When you are fading teams on the second leg of a back-to-back, that system is 110-85 against the spread, 56% this year. And again, 56% may not sound that great, but remember, 52.38% is your magic number to beat the juice. So that's actually pretty good betting against these teams. Wizards are rested. They did not play yesterday, and the line is going toward Washington. Washington opened at some shops as low as -1.5, -2. They're up to 2.5 at some shops, so this line continues to move in favor of Washington. And then also you look at offensive efficiency, 24th for Washington versus 28th for the Pistons. And you look at non-conference favorites straight up. That lack of familiarity typically benefits the better team, not by the record, but by who's favored. That system is 71% straight up this year. And I'll give you a prop bet, Emerson. Denny Avdija. This guy was from Israel. He was a high draft pick. Hasn't put up great numbers thus far in his career. He's still really young, but he's playing the best basketball of his career. In January, he's averaging 15 points, 7 rebounds. I'm going to go over 20.5 points in rebounds for Avdija. It's -120 to the over. He's playing great right now. Going up against a bad defense, I'm going Avdija over 20.5 PNR.
All right, Jules, real quick before we get to the second half of today's slate, I just got a question about betting Joel Embiid here for MVP. It was a topic of conversation earlier this week. So the NBA has these new game requirements, right, that require dudes to play at least 65 games in order to be considered for awards here. Joel Embiid has played in 28 of Philadelphia's 40 games this season. So I think he can only miss like 7 more games in order to be up for a repeat as MVP. So how would you navigate betting him right now for NBA MVP? Because he's got the second best odds on the board. Actually, he's tied with Jokic at plus 220.
Yes, so huge move on Embiid with the head-to-head win over Jokic, going from like 6-1 now down to almost a 2-1 co-favorite. Totally unwarranted. Embiid could not be a worse bet right now if you're betting the MVP market.
Okay.
First of all, he won it last year in a year that a lot of people thought it should have been Jokic and kind of had that validated through the postseason run. Second of all, Embiid said he does not care about winning the MVP this year. He cares about winning. Third of all, he is an ankle roll, a banged knee away from missing a week and this going completely out the window if he doesn't just get there below the games played requirements on rest alone down the stretch so that he's ready for the postseason, which he hasn't been in years past by kind of pushing himself too hard in the regular season. So I think that there's a better than 50% chance that Embiid, who's a co-favorite for this award, isn't even eligible. But if he is, there's going to be better options to vote for anyway. So if you're looking for the worst bet in the NBA right now, it might be Joel Embiid MVP.
Okay, that's good advice. That's why I asked you that award-winning question. Second half of today's slate right here, Cavs at Hawks, Grizz Bulls, Jazz Rockets, Thunder at Timberwolves. What sticks out to you, Josh?
I'm going to go Cavaliers on the money line. I think they're a short favorite on the spread here, and I think it's a good opportunity to just go money line in this spot. They're only on the money line as low as I think like minus 135, so paying a little bit more juice here. But good move toward the Cavaliers at Atlanta. Cavaliers opened as low as minus 1.5. Now they're up to 2.5, so lines moving in their favor. Cleveland's playing great. They've won 6 straight. You look at the spread and the money line percentages, both really good in terms of low bets, higher dollars for Cleveland. They're getting 72% of spread bets, 94% of spread money, 70% of money line bets, 87% of money line dollars. So that kind of jives with this line move. Also, this would be a fading of a back-to-back, which we talked about earlier with the Wizards, fading those teams on the second leg of a back-to-back. Atlanta played yesterday. Again, that's 56% ATS this year. And then road favorites straight up. They're 66% straight up this season as well. No Trae Young. He's banged up. And I'm really going to bank on the discrepancy defensively, Emerson. Cleveland's one of your best defensive efficiency teams in the NBA. They're 3rd overall. Atlanta is 27th. They don't play any defense. Cleveland, meanwhile, 9-7 on the road. Atlanta just 8-11 at home. So this is kind of lining up with betting systems, rest versus tired, line move, percentages, all in favor of Cleveland. Let's go Cavs on the money line around minus 135.
Why do none of these 4 games interest you, Jules?
It's just a tougher day in NBA, and we have we have the NFL playoff games. We have a really good college hoops slate. I would maybe be interested in the Timberwolves again after they burned Josh and I last week with the win over the Clippers when we liked the Clippers, but I'm not going to fade OKC. They're one of the best teams in the NBA against the
Okay, so talk to me then. Let's get back to college basketball here. We got a couple minutes left in this segment. Creighton versus Seton Hall here. What stands out to you?
Yeah, another Big East one, a lot like St. John's at home, where we're going to go Seton Hall at home against Creighton, getting a few points here. Creighton's 4-2 straight up and against the spread on the road, but you look, some of those road games have been against really bad teams. Let's look more recently, last couple of road games. Marquette lost and covered there against a good Big East team. UConn held to 48 points here, and I assume they're just on an East Coast trip after playing at UConn, staying on the East Coast. Now you're playing at Seton Hall, another road game against a team that's been really good at home. Seton Hall, you look here, they just blew out St. John's, won as a dog against Butler. They played a pretty close game against Georgetown, but beat Marquette outright as a dog getting points, beat Providence outright as a dog getting points. They've been awesome this season, particularly at home, particularly as a dog. This is a spot where Seton Hall should come through and win this game straight up. They're 9-1 at home so far this season and covering at a good rate. Creighton hasn't been tested much on the road, and when they have in these recent ones, they haven't been getting it done.
Josh, among the games we haven't hit on up to this point, what would you say is your strongest play right now?
Yeah, so I'll throw this one to Julian because I know he's a proud alum of Rhode Island, but I kept
we got to squeeze this one.
Yeah, because there's no UVM today. Yeah, my alma mater isn't playing Vermont, so let's go to yours, Julian, Rhode Island. I think it's kind of again, on the one hand, I am a little bit wary of taking huge dogs getting points just because one bucket here or there could make or break your bet. But Rhode Island looks pretty sharp here. They're on the road at Dayton. This game opened. Dayton, a 14-point favorite. The line is down to 13. That's notable because public is still laying the points with Dayton. Only 35% of bets on URI, but 81% of the money, an unranked, first-ranked opportunity. So, Julian, I may have to ride your Rams today.
Josh said it, not me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dayton, they're winning at home. They're only 2-6 against the spread at home, I believe. Big number. Rhodey's going to keep it within that.
Hope so.
All right, let's get back to the divisional round. After this break here, how much trouble will Christian McCaffrey be giving the Packers defense today? We'll break this one down coming up next. Kicking off the second hour of the Sweat, we broke down the first game of the day earlier in the show that included the AFC's #1 seed. Now let's talk the NFC #1 seed. Jordan Love and Brock Purdy here, Josh. 2 of the 5 quarterbacks in NFL history with 30 touchdown passes and 4,000 passing yards in their first season as a full-time starter. So, of course, they square off with a trip to the conference championship game on the line.
Yeah, so let's look at this game from a betting perspective, Emerson. It looks like the 49ers are taking in some game day respected action because this game, it opened 49ers minus 9.5. It got up to 10. It went back to 9.5. We pretty much sat 9.5 throughout the week, but now we're starting to see this line creep up to minus 10. So it tells me we got some late movement on game day breaking towards San Francisco. Why is that important? Because if San Fran wins by 10, you got the 9.5. Again, you cover that number. You look at the bet split, only 38% bets, but 52% of the money is on San Francisco. So again, a little bit of a fade the trendy dog play here. This reminds me a little bit of the championship game in college football where Washington and Michigan was kind of sitting the same, and then it broke late toward Michigan. Michigan ends up covering that number. But here's where it gets tough. All these betting systems that I lean on would match with Green Bay. Playoff dogs miss the postseason, divisional round dogs getting 7 or more, fading divisional round favorites off a bye. Jordan Love is 9-5 ATS as a dog in his career, and San Fran is actually 0-5 ATS their last 5 home games. So I think if you look at just what the market's telling us, it's that if you got a 9.5 with San Fran, looks like you're probably going to beat the closing line. But on the other hand, if you like Green Bay, you can't get the key number of 10. So this is a tough one to cap. I'm interested to see where you guys land on this one.
So this is really interesting for me because when I look back,
where's your cheesehead?
I mean, I'm back in the
I thought that's why you got a haircut, so you could fit it in your little cheese head.
No, dude. I mean, I'm definitely
No, dude.
I'm definitely back in the Packers in this instance here. But what really has me surprised a bit is that this spread is as high as it is. If this stands at 10, this will be the 7th time, regular season and postseason, that the 49ers have been favored by 10 or more points.
Okay.
They have done an admirable job in those situations. They've covered in 4 of those games when they are a double-digit favorite. But that being said, the quality of opponent, as you'd imagine, of those teams is pretty lackluster. Arizona, Washington, Arizona twice, the Giants, Seattle. Green Bay is a better team than all of those teams. I think that we can agree on that. And then what we saw last week. Obviously, the Cowboys in garbage time were able to put some points up against that Green Bay defense. But defensively, this Green Bay's Packers team, and I will continue to hammer this home every single time we're on talking about the Packers, that Packers defense is so much better than people give them credit for. They are not good on the ground, so obviously their biggest weapon, Christian McCaffrey, is going to be a problem here. But other than that, they've been great through the air. Jair Alexander might actually be playing in this one. He was questionable leading to that game against the Cowboys. Did end up playing, left that game hurt. And then the other thing that really was eye-opening for me in that game against Dallas. Dallas has one of the best pass rushing lines in the league. Jordan Love did not take a single sack in that game against the Cowboys. They were able to really mitigate the pressure on him. He was only under pressure on 7 dropbacks in that game against the Cowboys. And in those scenarios, he completed 5 of his 7 pass attempts.
Isn't that like a third of his dropbacks, though?
It was no,
like 21 passes.
it was. But even in those scenarios when he's under pressure, completed 5 of his 7 pass attempts for 152 yards. He was very good in those situations. And then Green Bay as an underdog, 7 of 11 ATS as an underdog this season. I'm more than happy to back Green Bay in this spot.
Jules, over the last 9 games, Jordan Love has thrown for 21 touchdowns and has just 1 interception. I mean, that's sensational. And with the quarterback playing that well, and you're catching 10 points right now, kind of feels like a near must bet.
If it feels like a near must bet from you, then give me the other side.
I'm putting my 92-cent bonus bet on that.
The only reason I haven't laid the points in this game is because week after week I've come on this show and been giving out a future of the Niners to win the NFC between plus 125 and minus 125. Still think it's a good bet at minus 185 after they win today and then are over a touchdown home favorites against either Detroit or Tampa. So I still would lay minus 185 on the Niners to win the NFC. Packers have been really good. That was a Mickey Mouse show from the Cowboys last week. Completely unprepared from a coaching standpoint. Completely poop their pants from a quarterback standpoint in Dak Prescott. And then you blink, it's 27-0, and you're trying to dig out of that hole. I felt like I needed to take a shower after cashing Dallas Cowboys team total over last week,
you felt
28 and a
dirty,
half, which got there at somehow scoring 32 points. This is going to be a completely different situation. The Niners are going to be ready for the Packers. The Niners have ways to, not make mistakes that the Cowboys made and give themselves a huge leg up on the Packers. Running the ball, obviously, Green Bay ranks 28th in the NFL against the run. They allow over 140 yards per game in road games on the ground. Christian McCaffrey, over in yardage, 100 plus if you want to get plus money. Can tie that in a same game parlay with team total over for the Niners and the Niners to win the game and get better than plus 150. Those are the ways I'm going about it, so I don't have to lay the points because I have so much exposure already to them winning. I was going to say if this came down to 8.5, easy teaser leg, but it's going the other way, and I agree with the move. I think you just lay it with the Niners here.
And Josh, the 49ers defense has been shakier at home this year. So they've allowed opponents to score touchdowns on 65.2% of their red zone trips.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And we think of them as just this incredible defense, which again, they have a lot of star players. I think they were one of the top teams for the All-Star, All-Pro, Pro Bowl situation here. But I think this is an opportunity for the Green Bay Packers to pass on them. I mean, over 250.5 for Jordan Love at minus 115. To me, that's a play that is worth making here, going up against this defense that, again, the stats don't kind of line up with what the narrative is with this great defense. So I'd look toward that situation, Emerson. And then also the total is interesting to me. It did tick up. A lot of these books were at one point, 49.50. It got up to 51. It's come back down a little bit. It's back down to 50.5. But it looks like there's a lot of respected money going over. Right now, you're getting 67% bets, 73% of the money on the over. The one thing that just scares me betting high total overs when it comes to the postseason is that if you look over the last decade or so, when the total is 47 or more, the under is actually 66%. So definitely the line's moving upwards. Again, I think if you're Green Bay, if you can score and keep pace, that's a good sign if you can cover that 10.
Bukes, I think a lot of people expect this to be a high-scoring game, but how high-scoring do you expect it to be? It may be a square pick here to kind of be buying high on Love and this Packers offense when their stock is at like an all-time high. But we do, it feels like over the last 9 weeks, have a large enough sample size to completely buy in here.
I mean, I just think the total is very inflated. Like, we're talking about we need 51 points here to hit the over. I mean, granted, these are two very good teams at hitting the over. Combined, they went 21-14 to the over, these two teams together this season. But that being said, it obviously doesn't hurt those numbers for San Francisco when they're putting up 30 points per game, and they did that 9 times during the regular season. In the games that San Francisco went over their total, they put up at least 30 points in 6 of those games. I don't know if I'm tabbing the 49ers to put up 30 points against this Packers team. If I'm sitting here telling you I think that the Packers defense has been underrated, then I don't think that they're going to be putting up 30 points in this game. So are we going to get something in like the mid-40s? I think we can definitely get there. Both these teams putting up 20-something points. But I just think 51 is a pretty high total here, especially when you consider that, if the 49ers do get some pressure on Jordan Love, then obviously that mitigates how good offensively that Jordan Love has been. Or if Brock Purdy, starts to falter a bit here and can't beat that secondary of the Packers, then I don't think we're going to get 51 points here in this game. So I'm going with the under in this one here. This one just feels a little too inflated for my taking.
What's the best prop on the board, in your opinion?
So one that jumped out to me, Emerson, George Kittle, over 51.5 receiving yards. It's minus 125 to the over, so juiced up a bit here. Kittle has gone over this number in 8 of his last 10 games. He finished second on the team in targets in the regular season with 90. Only Brandon Ayuk had more. And he's really been dependable here in terms of staying healthy. He sat out week 18, so he should be rested and ready to go. And I'm going to look back toward last week. One of my favorite prop bets last week was Jake Ferguson, the Dallas Cowboys tight end. He went off last week. He had 93 yards, 10 catches, 3 touchdowns. Now I know that was garbage time where Packers had a big lead and it didn't really matter that much, but that tells me that maybe the tight end position can be one that you target to bet against the Green Bay Packers here. So I'm going to go Kittle over 51.5 receiving yards at minus 125.
Does that sound good to you, Jules?
It does sound good to me. There's a couple of things that sound better to me, and one of them I do agree with Josh on, and it's the Jordan Love prop. I can like San Francisco as much as I want in this game, but the larger of a lead San Francisco builds, the more Green Bay is going to have to pass with an offense that already I would think would be leaning on Jordan Love. So I do like the Jordan Love over 250 in this game. But Christian McCaffrey, 92.5 rushing yards, is going to be my prop. When he was, a coin flip to go over this during the regular season, he stayed under by a wide margin during that 3-game losing streak, and he stayed under in a lot of these blowout wins that the Niners had. This is one I already went over the matchup with Green Bay giving up $140 on the ground in road games. But this matchup-wise is one where you're not pulling CMC in a blowout type of game. You're winning with margin here. You're keeping him on the field. So I think he's going to be a big part of the game plan to build the lead and a big part of the game plan to sustain the lead. And I think a 100-yard game is in the cards here for CMC.
Bukes, there was one point this season where I thought anytime touchdown score for Christian McCaffrey was going to be like minus 600 or minus like 700.
It's
minus 340 today.
Yeah, so that's like an implied probability of 76% at that rate. Like, I mean, you can't bet that at that number there. Like, that's absolutely insane. If you're going to take anything from McCaffrey, take a shot here with first touchdown score, you get plus 310 on that. But even that's like kind of ridiculous. What's 2 touchdowns? That's a good question.
That's
2 touchdowns is plus 150. That's ridiculous.
Perfect.
you sit on that?
I'll take it.
For a 2 touchdown score, that's terrible. I'm not looking at that at all. If I was going to take an anytime touchdown, I would go with Josh here. I think George Kittle is someone to take a look at here. Anytime touchdown score is plus 110. Packers have been basically league average against the opposing tight end position, but obviously Kittle in the red zone has been a target for Brock Purdy to go to here. So if I'm looking at that there. And then Deebo Samuel, combined rushing and receiving, I think that's something to take a look at too as well.
All right, well, not a shocker to see Christian McCaffrey atop the price board when we're talking DFS for this 4-game slate this weekend. You two will welcome in Mr. Jeff Ulrich next, try to help people build a money-making lineup for this weekend's divisional round.
Welcome back to the Sweat. Steve Buchanan, Julian Edlow. We're going to be joined by Jeff Ulrich. We're going to build some daily fantasy lineups, help you get those lineups set for today, the 4-game slate that we have Saturday and Sunday. Let's bring in Jeff. There he is. It's no longer a black screen. There's Jeff's handsome face. Jeff, we're going to swing some questions your way, help you build some of these daily fantasy lineups. Let me ask you this. I was looking at some of the ownership projections for this slate here, Jeff, and I was surprised that the 2 quarterbacks that are going today, who are double-digit underdogs, depending on where that Green Bay one lands, Jordan Love and CJ Stroud, are looking like they are going to generate the lowest ownership on this 4-game slate.
Yeah, the Stroud one definitely surprises me a little bit. You know, CJ Stroud's passing prop isn't very big today. It's about 236, 234 range. And, you know, the weather in Baltimore is not going to be very good. I mean, it is in that range where it's going to affect passing efficiency. You're also just going up against the Baltimore defense. It's, you know, really good against the pass. They're first in yards per pass attempt against on defense. So the Jordan Love one, though, I can definitely get behind that. We've got 2 games with like really big point totals. This is in good weather outdoors, but over in San Francisco where it's still pretty warm. I think Jordan Love is the far more preferred of those 2 for me, but I'm a little surprised because, you know, we have 2 quarterbacks in a dome today. We got Josh Allen on the slate. No need to really take big risks with especially CJ Stroud in a poor weather situation. So,
well, that's where I was going to go, Jeff, because, you know, we have the quarterbacks. Obviously, when you're a monster underdog like that, you're going to be throwing the ball. That's the appeal in those guys. But my eyes immediately on the slate go to that matchup in the Dome with a total that's being bet up. Jared Goff, 6,300. Baker Mayfield, 6K. Lions given up in their last 3 games. That Lions defense has given up an average of over 350 yards per game through the air. Baker just torched the Eagles. Is this where your eye is going on quarterback?
No, I mean, I would say Jordan Love would probably be my favorite. He's a little bit cheaper, but, you know, like those quarterbacks are in play. I mean, certainly I think when you're looking at DFS, when you're looking at this slate, I mean, you know, like this game between Tampa Bay and Detroit could obviously kind of have some video game numbers. I mean, there's a lot of room for Baker Mayfield if the Buccaneers do get behind, if Detroit sort of jumps out in front. I mean, you know, the Lions have averaged about 380 yards passing against, you know, in their last 4 games. So, I mean, the opposing quarterbacks are just racking up yardage at an insane rate. You've got Mike Evans, who's going to have like a 5-inch advantage over all of the cornerbacks on Detroit. You've got a great passing back in Rachaad White. Certainly Baker Mayfield has appeal this week. I would probably slightly prefer him to Jared Goff, but really Jared Goff is in just as good a situation, in my opinion. Could be in a, you know, I know the Lions are the favorites, but I mean, he could be in a situation late in the game as well. Tampa's playing pretty well. I think that game's going to be a little bit closer than people think. So, I mean, games, if there's one game I'm stacking and just being like, I'm putting like 8 players in it, it's this one because it's in a dome. Like you said, things have a tendency to get wild when you have 2 poor secondaries like that. And I think both quarterbacks have been playing well. So, you know, prefer Mayfield slightly there, but I mean, Goff and Mayfield would be like 2 and 3 on my list, right behind Love at quarterback for sure.
Jeff, I think running back is really tough this week. Obviously, with the games, you know, getting smaller and smaller, these slates, the options thin out dramatically. But like this is McCaffrey, Pacheco, massive cliff for me after that. So are you just going to kind of go chalky here, or are you going to kind of go a little bit off the board? Because there really is not a lot of room to differentiate unless you're going to do that at wide receiver. But what's your strategy here for running back? Because obviously everybody and their mother is going to be on McCaffrey, but, you know, do you want to stick with that, or do you want to go a different direction?
I mean, Dalvin Cook is the obvious play, right?
Yeah, Dalvin Cook. I mean, he is. I guess he is still live. Let's put a little respect on his name. Let's not actually. Part of the reason why I like going cheap at quarterback is that then it just allows you to fit McCaffrey in easier. I mean, I think that, you know, when you're going like Jordan Love or you're going, you know, in that Detroit game, certainly that part of the reason why you're doing that at quarterback so you can fit McCaffrey in, but. You know, to your point, you know, Gibbs and Rachaad White in that Tampa Bay game, you know, if for some reason you're creating a, like let's say you're creating a Brock Purdy stack and you're stacking with like Kittle and Ayuk, and maybe you're going to leave McCaffrey out and just hope that Brock Purdy throws for like 350 and all the passing touchdowns go to like Ayuk or something. then I think you'd probably be looking at going like Jahmyr Gibbs and Rachaad White from that game. Gibbs is a really good touchdown producer, and he does get a lot of red zone work. I know Montgomery's like the 1 yard guy usually, but Gibbs gets those touches inside the 10-yard line. He's very good at converting them. So I think Jahmyr Gibbs has good upside. I would rate him under McCaffrey, obviously, but that range, like I think Rachaad White's in a very good spot as well. I already mentioned him. I think Rachaad White, I would put up there. I would actually rank White just slightly in front of Pacheco, but certainly both have really good upside. The problem is when you're going like deep value for running back. Gus Edwards has some appeal. He's got 13 touchdowns. It's just he's not going to do anything else for you. If he doesn't get in the end zone, you're done. So Edwards is boom or bust. Singletary, not a great matchup, but certainly if Houston keeps that game close, Singletary's in play as well. There's just, outside of Singletary, I mean, Justice Hill, Dameon Pierce, these guys are real risks. Justice Hill is probably the only RB under 5K I'd really consider today.
All right, so running back a little tough after the obvious choices. Wide receiver, I think we have more of a conversation where we can talk ourselves into a lot of guys. My eye starts with right where I went with quarterback, the game indoors, and all those receivers that we have on Tampa and Detroit. And they're all, near the top of the list here when you look at prices. Is that also the game you're going for wide receiver, Jeff, or are your eyes going elsewhere here?
Like you said, we can go a lot of different places. Certainly Mike Evans, one of my favorite plays on the slate at 7,200. I mean, like I said, he's going to have a big advantage, I think, over those cornerbacks. He's going to be in a dome. I think Brandon Ayuk at 6,900, just a player I got a lot of respect for, also in play. But like you said, the nice thing here is whoever you pay up for, whether you're stacking Evans and St. Brown, like we've got Jaden Reed at 5,200, a player I really like today. San Francisco is not as good against the slot as Dallas was. I think Jaden Reed probably pops back up here. He's still the best wide receiver, in my opinion, on Green Bay. I think that's going to show today. I think Khalil Shakir at 3,800 is really interesting. Steph Diggs is a little banged up. Gabriel Davis isn't playing. Shakir's averaged 16.8 yards per reception at home. He's gone over 90 yards 3 times this year. I think at 3,800, he's a really nice value play. Like if you need deep value wide receiver, that is where I would go. But Jaden Reed, probably my favorite overall play, just from a price and, just setup perspective. And then again, if you're paying up, like I would definitely look to start with Mike Evans. And again, if you want to pay up twice, maybe even just go again, stacking that dome game with St. Brown makes a lot of sense. But certainly there's a lot of places we can go. My favorite sort of values are definitely Reed, though, and then Shakir from that Bills-Chiefs game.
Hey, Jeff, real quick on wide receiver here. Are you surprised that Josh Reynolds is projecting to be the most highest owned wide receiver on this slate? Almost double that of Shakir, but there's only $100 separating the two.
Yeah, no, it's a good point to bring up. I mean, Reynolds does have 10 catches over his last 2 games, but again, like he is the turn, maybe it's Jameson Williams going for like 50 yards today, and Reynolds gets like 2 catches. Reynolds' production has been up and down. I think it's a good spot for Reynolds, but I mean, it's really
he doesn't score.
People just
That's
looking
the
at the
biggest
game
thing.
card, right? So
yeah, he doesn't score. That's been the biggest thing for me. He's not a factor in the red zone. Real quick, go ahead.
I was going to say one name that we somehow haven't mentioned the whole way here is Chris Godwin. We're mentioning Mike Evans, but Chris Godwin, I think, is going to draw that Puka Nacua matchup that he just went bonkers in. So I don't disagree with Jeff in terms of the matchup that Mike Evans is getting and the jump balls that he should get. But because of that, maybe we're overlooking Godwin, who's also going to get peppered with targets in this game.
Let's move over to tight end here. Obviously, Travis Kelce is going to draw a lot of interest here. But, Jeff, I'm more than happy to fade Travis Kelce in this spot here. I mean, I don't want to say he's a non-factor, but, like, not getting the touchdowns, really not getting anything after the catch. Whereas you have, Kittle going against Green Bay. You have Otton, who really came on in that last game there. And even Isaiah Likely going up against Houston.
Absolutely. Isaiah Likely is interesting. I mean, at 4,700, I would probably lean Kincaid there. Again, I would really like Shakir and Kincaid. I think are going to be really important for Buffalo today. Chiefs have very good boundary corners, not necessarily as good in the middle of the field or in the slot. So I think Kincaid has basically averaged like 7 targets over his last 3 or 4 games. Wouldn't shock me if he got like 8 or 9 targets in this game. Really hit his ceiling. I think Dalton Kincaid's probably my favorite play under the slate is under 5K. Kittle certainly has a lot of appeal as well. And I'm with you on Kelsey. Like, I would rather pay down in this spot. I think Kelsey could still have a solid game, but I think Kittle's got a little bit more upside in that matchup. And then Dalton Kincaid, again, being under 5K, really interesting. I'll throw Tucker Kraft there out as just like a very 1% owned punt play as well. I know Musgrave's back, but Kraft, I think, still getting just slightly more snaps. I'd probably lean him, but I think Kincaid and Kittle are really the guys I would be looking to go overweight on. Could certainly see like a 30-point game from Kittle or something. He's got that in him still.
Jeff, one-word answer. Give us your favorite defense for this 4-game slate.
The Buccaneers, Steve. The Buccaneers have been playing well. They're 2,500. They let you do a lot of different stuff. It's still Jared Goff. I think he could get sacked a few times today.
All right, thanks, Jeff. That is very brave. Thanks for joining us, Jeff. Here, hope that gives you some insight into building your DFS lineups. We're going to give you some insight now on some of the games happening tomorrow, starting with Chiefs and Bills. We'll be right back here on The Sweat.
Gentlemen, what better way to end the NFL divisional round weekend than with another playoff matchup between the Chiefs and Buffalo Bills?
I want it to go to overtime.
So do I, dude. Absolutely. This is the reason why overtime rules have changed, is because what we saw between these two back in the 2022 postseason here. This also is huge because Mahomes will be making his first road start in the postseason. Is this the new Brady Manning, by the way? Mahomes Allen?
What about Burrow, though? There's like a third piece
No,
this time around.
no, dude, no. Burrow does not count.
I mean,
Why?
yeah, he does.
Because he's always injured. Always injured. Just answer the question. So
not
is it,
injured
is
enough
it not?
to beat Mahomes the first 3 times he played him.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense, dude. So you're saying no. You're saying this is not the new Manning Brady.
It's not there yet.
It's not there yet, but like I just feel like there's a third piece. It's different. I think there's a third elite quarterback in the AFC that's in the mix.
Okay.
Firmly.
You think I'm trying to force this thing?
Yes.
People want to, and I get the narrative, but also like it is what it is. It's going to be Allen, Burrow, and Mahomes, and the three of them. What about when the Bills and Bengals meet in a big playoff? Like I feel like the three of them are just going to be moving around playing each other in huge playoff games.
Just wait till Trevor Lawrence and the Jags put
I think
it
you
together.
made a good point. I think
Trevor Lawrence and the Jags.
because rivalries are made in the postseason.
I will give more of an opinion on this one and say that firmly that Trevor Lawrence and the Jags will not be a part of this.
All right. So anywho, since that 2022 playoff matchup, it was thrilling. It forced the NFL to change its overtime rules. We have been jonesing for this. It is finally taking place, except it is taking place in Buffalo. So how much changes for you, Josh, with your betting approach to this, knowing that this rivalry now, for the first time, going down in the postseason at Highmark Stadium?
I love the Chiefs here, Emerson. I think the Chiefs at +3. Now, right now they're +2.5, but it's really juiced up toward the Bills, -2.5, -120. Tells me the odds makers kind of want to go to 3, but they're a little bit concerned about giving that key number to contrarian bettors here. Emerson, how often do you get the Chiefs, a dog, betting against the public in this spot with Mahomes? It really never happens. Now, if we go back to the Super Bowl, I was an idiot. I took the Eagles in the Super Bowl, and I learned one thing.
Yeah.
Never bet against Patrick Mahomes as a dog, especially when the public doesn't believe in him. So if you look at these percentages right now, only 40% of bets are on the Kansas City Chiefs. We can bet against the public in a heavily bet game. Also, you look at a rest first tired advantage. This is big, Emerson. They played on Saturday. Bills played on Monday. 2-day edge here to get rested and ready to go for Kansas City. Buffalo has a ton of injuries, too. Remember that game last week against Pittsburgh? How many guys were dropping like flies on the defensive side for Buffalo? So you're down Gabe Davis offensively, Rapp, Benford, Bernard, Spector. A lot of guys are out. A.J. Klein is going to be your middle linebacker. Patrick Mahomes is going to torch A.J. Klein over the middle. So I think it could be a spot to look at for some guys out of the backfield receiving-wise. But if you look at Mahomes,
Steve seems happy about it.
8-1 ATS as a dog, Emerson. And to me, this is a spot where if you get, and right now it's 2.5, so you can either wait, see if it goes to 3, or what I'm going to do, just buy it up to 3. I don't like buying points, but if you can get them up to +3 at -120, I'm taking the key number. I'm going Mahomes. I learned last year to never bet against Mahomes as a dog.
Okay. Why are you so giddy over
here's
here?
what I'm worried about. And Josh said this, and then I'm just like, and this is the perception, is that everybody's going to be like, oh, Mahomes is going to torch this offense, this defense. Mahomes hasn't torched anybody this year. We have to get that perception out of our head that this is a fire on all cylinder Chiefs offense, because it is not. It is not. And that's what I think is really kind of clouding everybody's mind. You just put the Chiefs logo in any game, you have the thoughts of what this team used to be, and it's like, oh, well, the Chiefs are going to roll in this spot because they're the Chiefs. They have been anything but the Chiefs so far this season. This is the worst season statistically that we've seen from Mahomes.
Yeah, this is just the worst offense of the Patrick Mahomes era.
So it's like, are there opportunities for Mahomes to make some big plays? Yes. But like, how many times in that last game last week did we see he went for those deep shots and he couldn't hit Watson? He could not hit MVS. MVS can't get his hands on the ball at this point. So really, like, if there's anybody that is going to torch the Bills, it's Rice. That has me on Rice overs in this game. 68.5 yards, 6.5 receptions. 6.5 receptions at +105. He's gone over in yards in 4 of his last 5 games. Over in receptions, 3 of his last 5 games. Since week 12, Rice is averaging 7.2 receptions per game. There is no solidified wide receiver 2 in this offense. Tony might be active in this game. God, if that's the wide receiver 2, good Lord. Kelsey just not really getting anything after the catch or anything like that. But here's what really opened my eyes to this too. Mahomes, when he's targeting Rice, has a passer rating of 127. 79 when he's targeting Watson, 75 when he's targeting MVS. We're not even on the same planet with these two here. So give me the overs on Rice. But man, this is a tough game for me because everybody loves taking the Chiefs at this point because of the situation they're in, but this has not been the Chiefs team that you remember.
Remember, the Chiefs are contrarian. 60% of bets are on Buffalo, so the public isn't all over the Chiefs. That's why I like them more.
Okay, and everyone remembers what went down in Week 14. Chiefs are going to be pissed off after that offensive offsides call against Kadarius Toney. But Jules, since that dramatic 2022 playoff game between these two teams, they have played twice in the regular season. Bills winning both matchups by an average of 3.5 points, and Bills currently 2.5-point home favorites.
Yeah, it should be a close game. Patrick Mahomes has never played a playoff game on the road. How is he going to win? I'm with Josh. I love the Chiefs in this game.
Boy, Julian.
Best NFL bet of the weekend for me. I got it at 3 minus 118. It's floated around there on DK. We're going to see threes go back and forth. Get yourself a 3. But yeah, we're overblowing everything here. Mahomes is still 8-1-1, I think, as a dog. Believe it or not, Mahomes has played road games before. So because it's the postseason now, because he's traveling to Buffalo for a game, this is so overblown. He's traveled for 3 Super Bowls, won 2 of them. The one he didn't win, conveniently enough, technically was a road playoff game. He played the Buccaneers in Tampa Bay. No, nobody's bringing that up. This is so overblown. You have the revenge narrative from earlier in the season of the Chiefs losing a game that they feel they got robbed on, and the rest. Josh mentioned it. Josh covered everything in this game, really. The rest angle is ridiculous. It's almost like an extra mini bye week for Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and the Chiefs. They played Saturday. Buffalo played Monday. That is plenty of extra prep time here where the Bills are still focused on the Steelers.
Okay.
I love the Chiefs in this game.
Why are we ignoring the narrative of the pit, though? For the last 6 weeks, the Bills have been sacrificing a fan in the pit, the construction area where their new stadium is being built, and every time they sacrifice a fan in the pit, they win, which is why they've won 6 in a row. You say to pay attention to the officials in this?
I was just going to mention Sean Hockley, Ed Hockley's son.
Yeah, is he jacked?
He's not quite as jacked as his dad. Yeah, he's got to hit the weight room a little bit, Emerson. But he is one of your best road referees in the NFL. Road teams with Hockley are 56% against the spread. And also, I'll throw it to you guys in terms of the total. It was 46. It's down to 45.5. Not a ton in terms of weather. I hope they're shoveled out at this point, but 10-mile-per-hour winds, it is going to be cold. But that total did fall 46 down to 45.5. But again, Hockley is a good road ref, and he's a good under ref. Unders with Hockley are around 56% as well.
Fans were lining up like soldiers going to war yesterday to get into that stadium and shovel it out.
Good for them. I would recommend a snow removal company because it was a mess on Monday. But
it was. They did a really poor job.
Yeah, but you can sit anywhere.
One thing I wanted to add here, there's no way this isn't going to be a one-possession game. Teasing the Chiefs up to 8.5 is my favorite teaser leg of the weekend. Plenty of options in terms of what you want to put that with.
Bukes, you look at Kansas City finishing as one of the best under bets in the NFL due to its, as you've already mentioned, underperforming offense, strong defense. And in the Bills, this is one part I think people are sleeping on. The ground game has been the backbone of this late season push here. Buffalo's handed off on almost 51% of snaps in the past 3 games. So we're talking shorter gains and a continuous clock. So it was the under where you would lean towards.
Yeah, KC 13-5 to the under so far this year. That was the best mark for the under in the league at this rate. And we've talked about it numerous times. The second half offense for the Chiefs has just been so unbelievably bad, averaging less than a touchdown per game in the second half. Will we see that again here? That is yet to be seen. But there is one other prop too, and this is pretty juicy.
Okay.
But Shakir at 2.5 receptions is so crazy low to me. Like, he is the wide receiver 2 in this offense here. Like, he was bounds and away from anybody else, like Sherfield. They're not the guys that are stepping in for Gabe Davis. It's been Shakir. So, again, and it's minus 160 as we're sitting here speaking. This was at this was at 1.5 last night at minus 180. Since then, it's moved to now 2.5 at minus 160 now. Again, this is not something that I'm crazy about because of the juice here, but Shakir should be very involved in this game too, and probably has one of the better matchups because you've got Snead on Stephon Diggs in this game.
Okay, so go ahead, Jules.
Josh Allen, by the way, is minus 125 to throw a pick. He didn't do that.
I think that was even money yesterday.
It's moved. Yeah, it's moved. Money coming in on it. I think it opened up mispriced, but if you've been following that one, he didn't throw one last week against Pittsburgh, so the price got adjusted. That was only the 4th time this season that he hasn't thrown one. He's thrown an interception in 14 of 18 games, including against Kansas City.
And quickly, Josh, you like one of Josh Allen's pass catchers today, too?
Old reliable. Dalton Kincaid cashed the over last week. Same thing this week. I'm going over 39.5 receiving yards at -130. Had 3 for 59 against Pitt, 3-0 to the over last 3. I think Kincaid, especially in a game here where Allen looks over the middle, hopefully goes over 40 or more.
All right, well, coming up after our final break in the show, we're going to reset some of your favorite bets from the other 3 divisional games, the other 2 divisional games up to this point. We're going to break down Lions and Bucks. Why weather should not be a concern in Detroit.
The dome, Emerson?
Smart.
Kicking off our final block of the sweat here on a Saturday morning. And if you missed it earlier in the program, this is what Josh, Steve, and Jules like for today's two divisional games. Two divisional games that include both number one seeds on the AFC side and the NFC side. And we still have one more game to break down and get to, and that would be the Bucs visiting the Lions today, gentlemen. And a lot of talk just about the weather. What's that?
I believe it's tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, that's what I meant.
You made a mistake, kind of like the reporter asking about whether made a mistake.
That's actually that's exactly why I did that, Jules. For the segue of one individual who asked Todd Bowles, Buccaneers head coach, how concerned he is about the weather in Detroit despite them playing in a dome.
Any special plans to acclimate the team to not only endure but perform in those kind of frigid temperatures should you face them in Detroit?
You do know we play indoors, right? And they got a dome. No, nothing planned. We're indoors, and we only have to be outside for 20 seconds getting off the bus, going under the thing, so we'll be okay.
I mean, honestly, if I was there, I would have been like, would you consider Sunday a must-win game, Todd? That's the only question that probably would have been worse than that.
I enjoyed that he took the time to break down that we'll only have to be outside from the quick walk from the bus into the stadium, and we should be fine.
Listen, I'm the last person who's going to give that reporter crap. I have brain farts on this program multiple times a day, every day. But it's okay. That's why we're family, and you guys picked me up. Hey, Bucs, best road ATS team in the NFL this season. 8-1, Josh. What are you feeling right now in this game?
I'm feeling Bucs with the points. I like Tampa Bay in this spot, Emerson. This is actually the only kind of wheelhouse play for me of the weekend. What I mean by that is contrarian, low bets, higher dollars with a late reverse line move. So what we're looking at here, the Lions actually opened, as low as a 6-point favorite. It got up to Lions minus 6.5. Even a couple books flirted with going to 7. But then we did see yesterday a lot of sharp buyback on Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay went 7 down to 6.5. And now these 6.5s are down to 6. That's huge to me in a playoff game with a lot of money on the line around a key number. The fact that fell 6.5 down to 6 tells me smart money is breaking toward Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is only getting 40% of bets, but half the money. You mentioned it, Emerson. They've been great against the spread, 12-6 overall. 9-3 ATS as a dog, and I'm going to bank on the defense here of Tampa Bay. They're only giving up 18 points a game. That's the 5th best defense in the NFL. Detroit's giving up 23 points per game. So I know the love for Detroit. It's warranted. They're great. They're a great story this year. A ton of love here. Eminem's at the game. I mean, this is just a huge public love for this kind of Cinderella team. I think it's a great opportunity to buy low on Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield's playing great. I jumped on the 6.5 earlier this week, and I love the fact it's down to 6.
Bukes, do you agree with that?
When these two teams met earlier in the year, I believe it was week 5, Detroit closed as a 3-point
And that was
favorite.
in Tampa Bay, wasn't it?
That was in Tampa Bay. They ended up winning that game fairly easy. I think it was like 20-3 or something. It was a really bad game for the Bucs. But now we almost have the same exact matchup. Obviously, they're in a controlled environment this time, and you're telling me that the Detroit is a 3-point better than from before. I don't agree with that. I think this is the best Buccaneers team that we've seen over the past month or so. I forget who said it, but somebody said that Baker Mayfield has been the most confident that he's been since he started in the NFL. And I think that really showed in that last game there too. He came in that game with bum ribs, bum ankle. He was running the ball and looked good doing so. His efficiency was good. He's throwing into these tight windows. This is probably the best Baker Mayfield that we've seen. I bet some flashes that we've seen here when he was with Cleveland. This secondary for the Lions is a major, major issue. And with the way that Mayfield is throwing the ball right now and going to multiple guys, it's not just a condensed offense, kind of like how Buffalo has been or the Chiefs have been. It's going to Evans, it's going to Godwin. Otton was really involved in that game last week too as well, and Rashad White has really come upon as a catcher too. Obviously, he's never been the best runner, but he can catch out of the backfield too as well. Lions are going to be down, Khalif Raymond, not a huge guy, and Laporte is still not 100% too. So, there's issues over with the Lions, whereas it feels like Tampa is at full strength with a confident quarterback. I'm with Josh here. I'm taking Tampa with the points.
I mean, I do want to point out, though, Jules, the Lions defense was absolutely stellar in that winning effort against the Rams last week. The Rams did not score a touchdown on all 3 of their red zone trips. And then there's a reason to believe that that'll continue against the Bucs because the Bucs were the 3rd worst red zone offense in the league this year.
Very nice numbers. I'll also go Tampa here with the points. I faded them with the Rams last week. They win, don't cover, only game of the week where the spread actually mattered. And I also think this is a piece I teased Tampa up to 12.5 to go with Kansas City 8.5 on Sunday. I think those should be a couple of close games. Bucs are 8-1 against the spread on the road this season. Yep. Bucs are 9-3 against the spread as underdogs this season.
Go ahead. No, that's a good point. Continue.
Yeah, I know. We can be repetitive. It's okay.
No. I didn't say anything.
Did we cover the 9-3 against the spread as underdogs this season as well?
Yeah.
All right. This is more of a prop game for me than a side game, I will say. Baker Mayfield, who is going to be in my DFS lineup, with a passing prop number that is steadily on the rise. That is fine with me. I bet it over 253.5. I saw it at 257, 259 yesterday. I don't even know what it's at right now, Steve.
258.5 over minus
258.5. Yeah, that's fine. Still play it over there. Baker is coming off 337 in that Philly game. That Philly defense is broken, but still. 337 in the air last week. That was the fourth time in 5 games he's gone over 280, 3 of them 300-yard games. And you look at the Lions, they're giving up just under 350 yards per game passing over their last 3 games. This secondary has fallen off a cliff. And they have the second best run defense in the NFL, so you wouldn't expect that Tampa gets much going in the ground. They're also... regardless of what we think of this game, we're talking about a road dog of nearly a touchdown indoors. That's going to require some passing. So the game script, the matchup, the lack of matchup with the ground game, everything ties into what should be a big game here, win or lose for Baker Mayfield.
Who's delivering in the props department?
I'm with these guys. I know Steve's got a really good same-game parlay that I saw him tweet out that I really liked, but Baker Mayfield over 258.5 receiving yards. Julian gave you the reasons why, but look at last week. Matthew Stafford, remember he took a really tough hit. By the way, Stafford, this guy is nails here. They covered the number last week, obviously, with the Rams, but he threw for 367 yards. He, obviously, Puka Nacua did a lot on his own there, but I'm with the guys. I think this is a secondary with the Lions that you can pass on. Baker's gone over this number in 4 of his last 5 games. He's playing with house money, the best football of his career. I think this line is steaming up for a reason. I'll still go Baker over 258.5. It's juiced up minus 120. This may approach 260 by tomorrow.
I like Laporta anytime touchdown here. If you saw, it's amazing that he played in that game last week, because if you saw that injury the week before, it looked like there was no shot that Laporta was going to play, but he was on the field, played on 80% of the snaps, only 3 targets. His average distance of target was way down, one of the lowest of the season. That's natural with, that type of leg injury, but they're going to use him in the red zone, and he's still a weapon in the red zone there. Like I mentioned, only 3 targets last week, but one of them was a touchdown in the red zone. He's second on the team overall in red zone targets, trailing only Amon-Ra St. Brown in that category there. Bucs allow a ton of touchdowns, or I shouldn't say a ton, but do allow a lot of touchdowns to opposing tight ends, tied for the 3rd most in the league, plus 120 for Laporta, scoring anytime touchdown.
Where's this parlay everyone's talking about?
It's on DraftKings Sportsbook.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yes.
Do you want face on it?
Do you want
it
to?
is.
Oh, it's with your old haircut, now your new one.
Right.
Yeah, you got to update that, because this haircut looks
that profile
tremendous.
pic. You're looking good.
Do you want to share with people right now? Tell them to go to DK Sportsbook, what they can do.
Yeah, so you go to DraftKings Sportsbook, you go to the NFL tab, you'll see all the cards there with all the same game parlays. Just scroll through that under the NFL playoff one. You have to be on mobile, though, to do this, not on desktop, on computers. So if that's what Josh is looking for, you're not going to be able to find it. But on mobile, NFL playoffs, scroll over, there it is.
Okay, for the people watching right now, let's get to some no-sweat bets, shall we? Okay, Bukes, lead us off, please.
Going with that Nico Collins over. I gave you the numbers earlier in the show, but with CJ Stroud and without Tank Dell, Nico Collins is averaging 124 receiving yards per game. With CJ Stroud as his quarterback there, and no Tank Dell, no Marlon Humphrey in this game. That should open up a lot here for Nico Collins. His number set at 77.5. I like him to go over in this one here. Perceived tough matchup against the Ravens. They've been great defensively, but no Marlon Humphrey is a plus for Nico Collins. Give me over on his receiving yards.
What do you got here?
Dude, Emerson, I'm so locked and loaded for it today.
Dude, I can tell, dude.
You want to hear them all?
Yeah, actually, I
Let's
do.
Bets, you have multiple.
I got a lot here.
Wow,
but I'm not
buddy.
parlaying them.
This is your reputation on
Flat
the line.
bets, individual bets. Emerson, you got to take a chance. You can't score if you don't try, right? Stroud over 234.5, Love over 250.5, Kincaid over 39.5, Kittle over 51.5, Schultz over 32.5, and Emerson.
Oh my God, save some bets for the rest of us, bro.
I'll kick myself if these favorites cover, but I'm taking Houston plus 10. I'm taking Green Bay plus 10. I got a ton of systems on both.
My man, plenty to choose from there. Go ahead,
dang.
Jules. Anything left for you?
Well, good thing that I'm not going to football for a best bet here because Josh just gave you 12.
Yeah.
I'll have football tomorrow. Today we're going St. John's moneyline college hoops at MSG. Noon tip over Marquette, who struggles on the road. I think the Johnnies are going to get this one done.
All right, gentlemen.
And for the other 7 of my college basketball bets, you can look on Twitter.
Okay.
I'm not going to give 8 like Josh.
Tomorrow's
URI is a bet.
Yep. Tomorrow's show, you guys will break down more of the Taylor Swift-Travis Kelce relationship and what to expect in Buffalo. Have fun with that. 8 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow morning. We'll see you then.